You know, when I was a kid growing up, a lot of things were sacred in our country. Women were sacred and looked upon with great honor. That's obviously not the case anymore, as we see from recent cases. But I just thought the selfless devotion that brings a man or woman to die on the battlefield, I just thought that that might be sacred.
Good morning and welcome to AM Joy. This week, rather than focusing on the loss of 4 American Green Berets and the investigation into how they died in Niger, the Trump White House, including Trump's chief of staff, retired General John Kelly, was subsumed by the concept of disrespect. Specifically, disrespect for what Kelly said was once indisputably sacred in America: women. Sent out to defend Donald Trump's botched condolence call to a Gold Star widow, Kelly called out an apparent national lack of respect for women. And he did so while berating and personally smearing a democratically elected Congresswoman, Frederica Wilson, by telling a story about her that happened not to be true. Kelly's boss, Donald Trump, has continued to attack Wilson for nearly a full week now, including the tweet he sent this morning, which reads, "Wacky Congresswoman Wilson is the gift that keeps on giving for the Republican Party, a disaster for Dems. You watch her in action and vote R!" Exclamation point. Yet somehow, despite waking up to presidential tweets like that one, not to mention new threats to women's health care and access to birth control, and the president's own history of personal attacks on women, boasting about groping women, and allegations of sexual harassment of women, which of course he denies, the administration would have you believe that they consider women to be absolutely sacred. And joining me now to discuss that and more is the highest-ranking woman in American politics, Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi. It's always a treat to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Good morning.
So, Leader Pelosi, I have to get your comments on these attacks on a member of your caucus, Frederica Wilson, including this morning. What is going on here? What do you think of it?
Well, as you know, the president is the deflector in chief. We would like to talk about what he's doing to the middle class.
Yes.
In terms of his tax bill. He wants to deflect the conversation from that. Let me say, though, on this Sunday morning, how sad we are about the 4 young men who lost their lives in Niger. Brian Black, Dustin Wright, of course, LaDavid Johnson and Jeremiah Johnson, and our thoughts and prayers go to their families. And let me say about Frederica. Frederica is just a wonderful person. So for the attack to be on anyone inappropriately is wrong. But Frederica has had this 5,000 role models of excellence, of which Sergeant LaDavid Johnson was one. She was close to him as he was growing up. Since the kidnapping of the girls by Boko Haram, every Wednesday she has us dressed in red or holding red signs, photographing "We're not forgetting our girls." She's really dedicated and devoted to young people, and for them to mischaracterize her is really so sad. It's sad, and it really, they went beyond the subject. You know, there was one thing about LaDavid Johnson that was so sad enough, but then to mischaracterize her speech at the dedication of an FBI building when they had it all wrong. So let me just give the general the benefit of the doubt that somebody in the White House is grossly misinforming him about who Congresswoman Frederica Wilson is.
Do you think that John Kelly should apologize to Congresswoman Wilson?
But I think that he has to admit that what he did was incorrect in terms of the speech that he mischaracterized. He's lost his son. My heart goes out to him.
Sure.
He's a patriot. But I just think he was either misinformed or accepted something without checking about Frederica that was so wrong. So he has to set the record straight.
Yeah. I mean, well, he said he was stunned by what she said, indicating he was in the room. I mean, the pictures that we've seen, the Sun Sentinel put out the video, it doesn't show the crowd long enough for us to tell whether he was actually in the room. But he made it sound as if he heard this with his own ears. So it's not as if he was told something about it. He at least characterized it as something he'd heard for himself. Do you know whether he was actually at this event?
I don't know, but you know what I think is important is that we let these young men rest in peace and we find out the circumstances that happen in Niger. What is the scope of our involvement there?
Yeah.
Do we need an authorization of the use of military force? What is the geography of it? What is the scope of it? What is the timing of it? We need to, I know that the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and the Defense Committee are having a look into that. I don't know if they would describe it as an investigation, but that Congress, people on both sides of the aisle want to know the facts.
And let's talk about that for a moment, because the Niger issue, you know, and Congresswoman Wilson has made this point too, that what we want to know is what happened to our troops there. You would be one of the 8 principal leaders in the House and Senate that would get these briefings ostensibly from the White House about it. You know, Senator McCain has indicated he doesn't feel Congress is getting enough information in a timely manner from the White House about what went wrong in that operation. Do you feel that you're being properly informed by the White House?
Well, we haven't been so far, but the notice has been served.
Okay.
So we'll see what they do.
Yeah, it is ironic that, you know, with Benghazi, your colleagues on the other side of the aisle, the Trey Gowdies of the world, made great hay out of that for years, used it as a political football, had more than, you know, dozens and dozens of hearings. Do you see the prospect of hearings coming from the Republican side of the House on Niger?
Well, I would think that they would do it within the scope of the committees of jurisdiction, the Armed Services Committee, the Foreign Affairs Committee, which does have jurisdiction over the scope of our authorization of the use of force.
Yeah.
I don't see any need for that, for them to go into what they did in Benghazi, because that was politically motivated. This should not be.
Yeah. So we're talking about sort of this idea of women and whether women are being held sacred. We know that right now your colleagues on the other side of the aisle are making a full-scale attempt to do things like defund Planned Parenthood, these attempts to take away health care. A memo was recently circulated coming from the White House showing that they had a plan that involves really rolling back women's liberties in terms of reproductive rights. How concerned should women be that this stuff could actually pass the Congress and be signed into law?
Well, this is about respect. It's about respect for women, women's judgment about the size and timing of their family, respect for women in the workplace, equal pay for equal work, respect for women, the Affordable Care Act no longer being a woman with a pre-existing medical condition. The list goes on in terms of the obvious disrespect, and won't even go into things that aren't about policy but are about behavior. And this, no, I really, one advantage we have now is that they're very clear about their agenda.
Sure.
For years they were a little more subtle about it, but now it's very clear. It isn't even about the full reproductive rights for women. It's about family planning, contraception, birth control. They don't want to fund that. And they're going to say, they've said to women with the president's recent executive order, it's up to your employer to decide if you can afford contraception. I mean, please. So I think women, I always said they had a lot at stake in the election and a lot to lose with the election of Donald Trump and Republicans to Congress. And let's hope that women will speak up. Look, the march served notice. Women are watching, women are showing up, women marched, women are running for office.
Yeah.
We have to win.
Well, that is on that note. This morning I pulled up the National Journal and pulled up this article which talks about the fears that the House Republican caucus has about a potential wave election in 2008. The Cook Political Report has ranked a lot of these House races and shown that, you know, Democrats only need to turn over a net 24 seats. They're concerned about you coming back as Speaker. Are Democrats really organized and prepared to create the momentum to have a wave election and actually take back the House?
Yes, we are. We have a great chairman, Ben Lujan from New Mexico, and he commands the respect of our colleagues with his plan for mobilization. I would do the M's, the mobilization, the messaging, the money, but nothing more important than the candidates.
Right.
And 1 year, I always say, tell me where you are 1 year before the election, because that is whether the door is open for us a wave or not.
Yeah.
And if you're president, if the Republican president is under 50%, the door is open. This president's
well under
40%.
Yeah.
Let's say he stays under 50.
Yeah.
But what matters is where he is now, because now is when people decide whether they're going to run for office. And this is when we get the A team. They don't. This is when you see their retirements, because members of Congress who formerly just had an easy run of it will now have a tougher one, and they know there's the prospect of serving in the minority.
Yeah.
So you will see a number of retirements on their side. So we know how to do this. We did it in 06. We did it 06 when we had the message operation, the congressional Democrats, Harry Reid and I, will do it now. We have the control. In between, it was all presidential.
Yeah.
All presidential.
So let's talk about the potential for that. If, let's say, Democrats were to retake the House, there is still a contingent on the left side of the Democratic Party, and it's ironic because you are, of course, also a liberal member of the party, that would like to see you ousted as leader. If the Democrats were to retake the House, do you foresee a challenge to your leadership?
Well, with all due respect, I disagree with your characterization. I have overwhelming support of my caucus. There's some people there who disagree with me, and that's okay, but I would not say that it's a challenge from the left, because I am on the left.
Yeah, you are on the left.
I am left. But if anything, that they use the fact that I'm a progressive in the ads against me. They'll talk about the fact that I'm from San Francisco, and that I'm a San Francisco liberal and the rest of that. So that's not what it is. It's about other people's ambition, which is a good thing. Yeah. But you know what? I got to fight the tax bill. I've got to fight the assault on the Affordable Care Act.
Absolutely.
I've got to pass the DACA bill. I'm not worried about it's not about me. It's about what policy means in the lives of people.
So Tom Steyer is a big supporter of yours, also from California. I want to play you what he said to me about a week ago on this very show. Take a listen.
He's brought us to the brink of nuclear war, obstructed justice at the FBI, and in direct violation of the Constitution, he's taken money from foreign governments and threatened to shut down news organizations that report the truth. If that isn't a case for impeaching and removing a dangerous president, then what has our government become? Join us and tell your member of Congress that they have a moral responsibility to stop doing what's political and start doing what's right.
Sorry about that. Reading is fundamental. It's not the interview that we did last week. That's actually an ad that Tom Steyer is funded running, saying that Donald Trump should be impeached. If you become Speaker of the House next January, or January of 2019, will you push for the impeachment of this president?
You know, I've served a long time on the Ethics Committee in the Congress. It's one of my dues that I paid to the caucus, and it's only about the facts and the law. If he's broken the law, you would think there would be a bipartisan move to do that. But because we don't like his policy and we don't like his attitude, and, well, don't let me go into all the things we don't like about the president on a Sunday morning. You know, if people have the facts, that's why I would like us to have an independent commission. We have an investigation within the Justice Department. We have an investigation within the Congress. We should have an outside investigation as to what happened.
And we are out of time, but if Robert Mueller comes back with a report saying that there is evidence of collusion between Donald Trump's campaign and Russia, do you believe he should be impeached?
Well, first of all, where does Mueller take that?
Sure.
But his burden of proof is different than what it would be in the Congress of the United States, and people should know that. He could go to a criminal investigation of some of the people he's investigating. What we're doing is saying what the measure of behavior, the Constitution of the United States, highest crimes and misdemeanors. But in any case, we've got to fight this. This tax bill is Armageddon. This is it. This hurts the middle class. It is an opportunity cost for our investments in our budget. We're for a better deal, better jobs, better pay, a better future, and we must reject the Republican tax plan. That's our task at hand.
Leader Pelosi, I'll have to have you come back and we'll just talk taxes, because I know it's very important. This tax bill is something else, and we will have you back. Thank you so much. I always appreciate the opportunity. Thank you. All right, and coming up, General John Kelly and Donald Trump have come for Congresswoman Frederica Wilson this week, and she joins me live next.
You know, when I was a kid growing up, a lot of things were sacred in our country. Women were sacred and looked upon with great honor. That's obviously not the case anymore, as we see from recent cases. But I just thought the selfless devotion that brings a man or woman to die on the battlefield, I just thought that might be sacred.
Good morning and welcome to AM Joy. This week, rather than focusing on the law, waking up to presidential tweets like that one, not to mention new threats to women's health care and access to birth control, and the president's own history of personal attacks on women, boasting about groping women, and allegations of sexual harassment of women, which of course he denies, the administration would have you believe that they consider women to be absolutely sacred. And joining me now to discuss that and more is the highest-ranking woman in American politics, Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi. It's always a treat to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Good morning.
So, Leader Pelosi, I have and personally smearing a democratically elected Congresswoman, Frederica Wilson, by telling a story about her that happened not to be true. Kelly's boss, Donald Trump, has continued to attack Wilson for nearly a full week now, including the tweet he sent this morning, which reads, "Wacky Congresswoman Wilson is the gift that keeps on giving for the Republican Party, a disaster for Dems. You watch her in action and vote R!" Exclamation point. Yet somehow, despite the loss of 4 American Green Berets and the investigation into how they died in Niger, the Trump White House, including Trump's chief of staff, retired General John Kelly, was subsumed by the concept of disrespect. Specifically, disrespect for what Kelly said was once indisputably sacred in America: women. Sent out to defend Donald Trump's botched condolence call to a Gold Star widow, Kelly called out an apparent national lack of respect for women. And he did so while berating, to get your comments on these attacks on a member of your caucus, Frederica Wilson, including this morning. What is going on here? What do you think of it?
Well, as you know, the president is the deflector in chief. We would like to talk about what he's doing to the middle class.
Yes.
In terms of his tax bill. He wants to deflect the conversation from that. Let me say, though, on this Sunday morning, how sad we are about the 4 young men who lost their lives in Niger.